Friendship to him was often considered a luxury he could ill afford. Before this mean spirit is cast in too dark a light, let us remember what he came from. He was the third child of parents that the case could be made wanted only two. His brother and his sister preceded him by 3 and 4 years respectively, and of course made up the perfect nuclear family of 4. His parents were never cruel to young Saul, but they had a difficult time understanding him. He would be diagnosed bipolar much later in life, and perhaps that could explain some of his odd behavior. He was a mystic, a great lover of the world that shrouds itself in silence and shadows. Spending many an hour alone, he started to hear the whispers from the other side, delightful and sometimes cruel in its cryptic language. He learned the secrets of God. God was his father, and he knew that to be true. He had no earthly one as far as he was concerned. The Bible later taught him the simple prayer that was seeped in lies. His church family encouraged this derangement when they started out their Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven. It is no wonder he was branded insane as an adult. He takes upon himself the job of acolyte, altar boy, to please his mother and to grow in understanding of this rich occult practice that was the church. He also made some friends, of whose presence made him feel more regard for the monstrous race that he had been born into. The friends were also something that was somewhat pushed on to him, his parents apparently feeling that the boy was not normal. All of his life, he was never sure about whether the choices he made were his own or forced upon him. Maybe he was normal. He took it all in stride. But as he grew, so did his desires. Of course, when he reached puberty, a time that was vile to him, the desires he had need no explanation. These desires shaped themselves in a more normal fashion. At 12, he got drunk for the first time, something he was sure his father, the earthly one, would approve of. He also had a tremendous desire to smoke, something he felt his mother, the earthly one, would approve of. His deep mystical thoughts continued to plague him. He found himself consumed with the struggle. As a small boy, he had a recurring dream. In it, he was placed in the middle of a path of 2 moving lights. One was blue, and one was white. The dream of these bobbing lights that move ever so slowly, the boy became a constant and continual reminder to the boy that he had been placed within that struggle. The struggle of good versus evil. These dreams would terrify him to no end, and he did not know why. He still, as an adult, can't understand why these dreams were of such abject, visceral horror. He dreamed often as a child, sometimes of things that he couldn't possibly understand. One of these dreams, in the spring of 1980, would create such a tremendous influence, a construct in his mind, that this one dream would become the means of his continual desire to prove himself above the fray. This dream became an obsession that had brought with him, even to this day. It would be his wellspring that gave him the water of life, the power to do both good, and more oftentimes than not, the power for him to do evil. He had what the prophets of the Bible might call a vision. It was Jesus Christ, there in ethereal form. He told young Saul 2 different things. Jesus told the boy that he needed to watch less television and read his Bible. He left by saying, "I am the way, the truth, and the light." As might be expected, this had a great effect on him. The line about television, be it somewhat asinine, was important. The boy was watching a lot of TV, practically all of his waking life. Remember that he had no real friends. Life was a tedious and depressing existence for the boy. His dream offered him hope, however, but it was not to be the conclusion of the night's dreams. Had he only dreamed of his precious Savior, the whole dream incident would have little effect on the boy's life. It was the next dream, the dream that sends shivers down his spine to this very day. In this next vision, he was in a bedroom. The air permeated with evil. On the bed was an older version of himself, with a woman, engaged in what can only be called lascivious, brutal sex. He walked to the huge bay windows to look out on a grand estate, tennis courts, swimming pools, etc. He felt the presence in this room tell him, without words, "If you bow down and worship me, I will give you this." This dream had much more influence than the one of his Savior. He thought that if Jesus were to visit you, you might have a great destiny. By contrast, he knew that if the devil visited you, you did have a great destiny. He would hold these dreams in such high reverence that he came to see his life in two acts. There was everything that came before these dreams and everything that came after. For the rest of his childhood, indeed, most of his adult life, these dreams would press him into making terrible, tragic decisions. It wasn't until he lost his faith that he was able to free himself from the effects of this night. He struggled with the polar opposites of his personality. Jesus had become an incarnate vestige of his own personal righteousness. The devil within would become the monster that only he knew how to be. It took a year before Saul did as his Savior had told him. When Saul was just 11, he read the Bible for the first time. Not knowing what to read, he simply turned to the back and read Revelation. This would have a profound effect on him. The passages in the book spoke to a dormant spirit within him. It pressed on his mind and soul. Despite this great gift, the fulfillment of his desire to be special, he feared that he was being torn between the forces that dictate the flow of the mystic streams of human nature. This young boy's life had become the ebb and swell of a tide of such profundity. This was a question of the very nature of man himself. He asked himself, because he really wasn't sure, was he good or was he evil? Does good and evil really exist? His answers to these questions that only he believed he could answer, were often opaque and contradictory. The great philosophical items that plagued mankind since we created conscious awareness within ourselves was tearing this young boy apart. Saul realized at this age, that often that the earth's present, past, and future rested squarely upon his perpetually confused shoulders. He believed, despite his misgivings, that he was up to the task.